Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first pre-qualification solicitation conference for the disaster debris and hazard tree removal DDHTR services. This is reference number PQ052322. My name is Luke Wainscott, and I am the contract analyst administering this solicitation. Today's attendance is non-mandatory, but CalRecycle will still be releasing a list of today's attendees by addendum on the website to help facilitate networking. Also presenting along with me today is CalRecycle's Chief Counsel Anastasia Baskerville and Staff Counsel Peter Chow and Project Engineer Stephen Ito.
Oops. Can you see me? Good morning, everyone. I'm Anastasia Baskerville, Chief Counsel at CalRecycle. Thank you for joining us today. There's Peter. You want to say hi, Peter?
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. I'm Peter Chow, Staff Counsel for CalRecycle.
And there's one of our senior project managers, Steve Ito. So we'll all be sort of tag teaming on the presentation today. Thank you for joining us. Okay, we're going to turn it back over to Luke to take it away here.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna go over the agenda for what we're gonna be discussing, and then also there's gonna be a questions feature that you guys will have the ability to submit during this presentation. So for any questions that you guys would like to ask, you can submit them to the chat feature, and I'll show that to all of you through this this presentation here. So let me turn my camera off, and I'm gonna pull up the PowerPoint here. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Turn this to share my screen here. From the beginning. Hope you guys can see this all right. Stasia or Peter, are you guys able to verify looking clear?
We can see the green screen.
Perfect.
Yep, we're good.
Perfect. So welcome to the pre-qualified bidders list optional conference today. Let's just see here. So the agenda that this is the agenda. I'm just going to go over this briefly. So we've done our introductions. We're going to cover the background of this pre-qualification solicitation, as well as a contract timeline for the process overall of how this works. Then we're going to go over the process schedule for certain timelines in terms of questions being required to be submitted, as well as when the proposals would be due, et cetera. So we'll go over those dates, and then we're going to go over the application submission process of what would need to be included in your submittals, and that's also included in the solicitation itself. And then we're going to go over the service categories and the service areas for this solicitation. And then after we go through that and finish the presentation that Anastasia is going to happily lead us through, then we're going to go through and leave it open for questions for the audience. So, and I'll show you guys how you can submit those questions on this next slide here. So you'll be able to submit your questions via the GoToWebinar side panel on the feature once you guys log in here on the right. So CalRecycle will be answering questions pertaining to this new solicitation process, but we do ask that you keep your questions exclusively to the application process itself. Technical questions will be referred to in stage 2. This current solicitation has a question period regarding this process, so please submit your questions if possible before May 31st, 2022 by 5 p.m. The questions should be submitted to contracts@calrecycle.ca.gov using reference number PQ052322 in the subject line, so that we know those questions are referring specifically to the solicitation. And then CalRecycle is going to collect the questions and answer them by publishing an FAQ, frequently asked questions, on our new dedicated disaster contract page listed from this link right here. So we just want to thank you guys for your time today and your interest in participating in this important process. And I will turn the presentation now over to Anastasia.
Thank you, Luke. So again, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a very exciting milestone for CalRecycle, partnering also with Cal OES to make sure that when an incident happens, specifically fire season this year, that we are ready with a pre-qualified bidders list so that when the incident occurs, stage 2, as we'll go through, will happen. You'll submit your bids and you'll be able to deploy straight away. So we'll get people back in their homes sooner. So what is a pre-qualified bidders list? To ensure a future bidder's responsibility, which is true. So that's the qualifications are through an application process. So a lot of the questions and the criteria that you see in our normal RFOs for disasters, you'll see in this pre-qualified application. So why is that? That's to assure the state of you, the future bidder's capacity to perform work related to disaster and hazard tree removal. Luke, you want to do the next slide, please?
Sure. Alrighty.
Okay, so conceptually, this is very different. It's very exciting, and I think it's going to prove beneficial not only for our partners, you, our contractors, but also for the citizens of the state of California, and really is kind of groundbreaking for California sort of to be a leader in this space by getting ready through this pre-qualification solicitation. So what we're referring to the pre-qualification solicitation as is stage 1. You'll see that in the solicitation document itself if you've already had a chance to review it. So stage 1, as you see, is a pretty thorough vetting of your capacity to bid on these incidents. And then the actual bid, so the pricing, will be submitted in what we're referring to as stage 2, which is when the incident actually occurs. That bidding will reflect a very specific scope of work. You were given example documents in the pre-qualification solicitation, which are exactly that, examples. And so in stage 2, we'll have more specific scope of work and exhibits. The bid will be awarded and the contract will be executed. We could do the next slide. Let's go back for one sec, Luke, because this is important, or maybe we cover it on another slide. But I'm sure all of you listening today are familiar with joint ventures. We are having 2 lists, hazard tree and disaster debris removal. The reason for that is because the joint venture is usually formed right at or before contract execution and formation. So really that doesn't happen in stage 1, that happens in stage 2. So that's why we have these 2 lists for qualification. Okay, now we can go to the next one. Looks like the next slide, yeah. So this is just the schedule. So we published, what's today, the 26th? We published a couple days ago on Tuesday. Thank you for attending this conference. It is optional, but I think because considering the newness of this process, we really hope that we have a large attendance here. We can't see exactly how many of you are attending, but we hope there's lots. Your questions are due by 5 p.m. on May 31st, which is, I guess that's next Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day. It's important to note here that the questions on the pre-qualification process and application are exactly that. So they're questions that should be about the process. They are not questions that will be entertained about any of the examples that were provided, scope of work and the other exhibits. So those questions come at stage 2. And what we'll be doing, which is also new for us at CalRecycle, also very exciting, we'll have a frequently asked questions page just on pre-qualification process. And that's for 2 reasons. That's because it's a new process, so there's going to be lots of questions. And secondly, this is an ongoing process, so we want to make sure that there are questions for new bidders who enter our market, which we hope there are many new bidders that enter our market. So for this season coming up, your applications are due before 2 p.m. it looks like on June 10th. Now you might ask the question, if it's ongoing, why is there a date in there? Well, because you know as well as I do that fire season comes earlier and earlier every year. I mean, we just got done with over 100-degree heat, not even at the end of May. And so we really wanted to put this initial deadline in for all of you so that you can apply and get on this list early. We'll publish it on or before July 1st. And then as I noted, there will be ongoing publication of qualified bidders that make it on the list within 21 calendar days after submittal. So again, you know, we encourage everyone to get on this list at any time, but those that are interested in participating in this year's fire season and debris and hazard tree removal are strongly encouraged to make that June 10th deadline. Okay, next slide, Luke, please. Okay, so I guess I already kind of went over this, but it bears repeating that the stage 1 questions, which will be frequently asked questions, are specifically about the process. And just like we do on all of our solicitations that are specific after we get, oh my gosh, the word is escaping me. Peter, help me out here. You know, the order from OES.
Mission task.
There we go. Thanks, Peter. After we get mission tasks from OES, when the incident is happening, then those questions will be, stage 2 questions will be entertained when we publish the request for bids with the very specific scope of work. And the difference between the two is important. The questions at stage 2 usually always become an addenda to the contract, so our binding. The questions, frequently asked questions for the pre-qualification process are actually application questions. They won't become part of the contract, and that's why we've got this FAQ page. Okay, next slide. And Peter and Steve, feel free to chime in if I'm missing anything. Okay, and like we always do, we have this handy dandy checklist for you. You know, it's important to note that incomplete or ineligible, really, applications will be rejected, and the remedy is you can just keep applying till you get it right, which is wonderful for bidders. So how about next slide? Because this is sort of self-explanatory. It's just a checklist for you to make sure that you do turn in a complete application. Okay, this is important. So what we have here, and this is Essentially, based on our past experience with our incidents, we have 3 different categories, 1, 2, 3, small, medium, large, if you will. And like I explained earlier in the presentation, 1 is for disaster debris removal and 1 is for hazard tree removal. So your qualifications, your references, your experience, your licensure, the whole, soup to nuts have to reflect which category you are applying to be pre-qualified for. Of course, if you want to pre-qualify for all 3 categories, we strongly encourage that, because if you're not pre-qualified for each category, or at least for the largest category that you bid on, then you will be out of luck for bidding on that category when we do an RF request for bids. So these are just the size. So small, it's sort of self-explanatory. Small, 1 to 700, medium 700 to 2,000, large 2,000 plus. And then hazard trees, different, but a metric. Steve, do you have anything that you want to add to this piece?
Yeah, I would say, Anastasia, the one thing we would like to share is these aren't exact numbers, but these are based on past projects, what we consider small, 1 to 5,000 trees, medium, 5,001 to 15,000, and large, over 15,000 trees for a tree project, as well as the debris parcels. I'm sure you contractors have all done projects, but this is our category for our bidding purposes, and hope you guys can apply those so you could get your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, let's do the next slide, please, Luke. Okay, and similarly, just like we have the categories, we also have regions. So this is not necessarily where you're headquartered, obviously. It's where you are prepared to deploy and work and travel to. So when you are applying, you want to indicate every category as well as every region for which you are not only pre-qualifying, but are prepared to deploy to. So this is, again, self-explanatory. We've got 5 different regions. Steve, anything you want to talk about with this one?
I would say that these are basic regions. I'm sure someone could argue, well, Mariposa County is in the northern, it's in central or something. This is a basis we could go off of. And I'm going to say that, I have no crystal ball to say where the fires are going to be this year or if we are going to have fires. So this is just an orderly segregation for these regions that we're using at the state. And contractors should be looking at the regions to see, do I want to work in northern region, starting from Madera County all the way up to Del Norte and Modoc, or do I want to work in other regions? So please do an evaluation of this, determine if it suits you, and if it does, you're welcome to bid. That's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. Okay, how about next slide, Luke, please? We're kind of rolling right along here, which is great. We'll have lots of time for questions. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, we really, really encourage you to make that June 10th deadline. The publication of the initial list for the season will be on or before July 1st. And again, encouraging all interested parties to apply as early as possible. And also, we encourage you to apply and get pre-qualified for as many regions and categories as possible. The other thing, and Steve, or Peter, you can chime in here. I think The reason why we did categories and regions is it allows bidders to grow in their experience and their breadth of and scope of what they are willing to take on, and so grow in their business each year, which is exciting for us to partner with you guys in that way. Okay, we'll do the next slide. Okay, so this is how we submit our questions. I do not see the little, apparently you guys that are watching can see a little tab that says questions. I'm not seeing that, but
Yeah, there should be on the feature panel, and it looks like
okay.
we have, let's take a look here. Answered questions.
While we're waiting for some of the questions to roll in, if I may add on stage now,
Totally.
I just wanted to highlight the fact that it's CalRecycle's expectation that prevailing wage will apply to our future projects, to our future disaster recovery operations projects. And it's our expectation that prevailing wage will be in stage 2 solicitation documents. But just as a prophylactic measure, we've also placed that heads up in our stage 1 documents too.
Yes. Yes. We've got skilled and trained in there too, I believe. I know we do.
All right, let's see here, one second. Pull this off here. So it looks like we have some submitted questions. I'm just going to be opening these up. Just give me 1 second, guys.
Yeah, take your time. So, yeah, and then the FAQs, which is nice, will be posted on a rolling basis on our, we've got that dedicated disaster contract page. And so you can reference those anytime with that specific reference number, 52322.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, for any of the questions, I know you guys will have the ability to ask them. Looks like in this question feature here, but like Anastasia had said, just make sure any questions that you do have to email us at that address right there, contracts@calrecycle.ca.gov, and then we're ultimately going to publish that onto our website with responses to your questions. So it looks like we have a number of questions here. I guess I can just start with the first one. It's, are you reordering this PowerPoint and verbal presentation for future reference? Recording, sorry. Are you recording this PowerPoint? Yes, so this PowerPoint will be recorded at this time. Yeah, we're going to be saving it for our records. So we will have a video recording, and then as well as this PowerPoint as well. So this is all going to be saved. And like I said, any of the questions that you guys have, we're going to be publishing on our website as well with the answers. Looks like the next question: do landfills need to register for the pre-qualification application?
Landfills? I'm not sure what that question means.
So,
Oh,
Steve Ito here, and I'm going to say that landfills are regulated by the state of California and CalRecycle, and the list of landfills is supplied to the contractors during stage 2, and so that is automatically taken care of.
Right.
yeah, yes. So Steve, you mean the permitted landfills that are allowed to be utilized?
That is correct, the permitted landfills. And,
Yeah.
and I have to say that contractors are available to go to other landfills, but they must apply during the debris process and they will get approved after review.
Okay.
All right, I will go on to the next question here. So this says, do subcontractors, and this is in parentheses here, labs, LABS, need to be qualified? Further, do we just team up with primes? How do primes know we are capable to team?
That's interesting if I'm understanding the question. So if, primes, just like we always do, prime contractors or multiple contractors that form a joint venture will still hire subcontractors. Subcontractors that want to build their business and strengthen their position in the market certainly are encouraged to try to pre-qualify for the small category or any category within which they feel confident they can meet those qualifications. Of course, not being pre-qualified does not in any way preclude subcontractors from, going to work for a prime contractor who's awarded at stage 2 the bid to do the work. If I'm understanding that question correctly, Peter, Steve, did you want to add anything to that?
I think the only thing, this is Peter, the only thing I would add is also that we will be publishing our pre-qualified list. So subcontractors may be able to utilize that as an opportunity if they wish to network with primes.
Yes.
Contracting opportunities. The other thing to note also is that subcontractors for tree cutting or tree felling services, we anticipate requiring these type of subcontractors to have an LTO license with CAL FIRE. So it's to the subcontractors' benefit to get their LTO license either applied for or renewed right away with CAL FIRE. That's the only two things I have to add. Steve?
That is correct. The subcontractors, especially for wood processing and wood cutting, can join up with the prime contractors.
Yeah. So actually, that's a really good point. That this list will be, I hope, hugely beneficial to subcontractors because they'll know who are the players in the market.
Anastasia, this is Shelley. Can I add also something?
Yeah, totally.
We definitely want to encourage, if you're a small business or DVBE, to sign up on DGS's Small Business DVBE Emergency Registry.
Yep.
That information will be available to primes to pull from that list as well, and we highly encourage you to sign up there.
Thanks, Shelley. Looks like we can move on to the next question here. This is almost pretty similar to how Anastasia had responded. So it says, do subcontractors interested in a distinct piece of the hazard tree removal, for example, trucking, do they use the pre-qualification process as well? Further, will there be a database or other tool for contractors to use to find qualified subcontractors?
Oh, wow. Well, no, not right now, but I love that idea. But I think the subcontractors will have, so just using the example of trucking, they'll have the opportunity to know which contractors they should be reaching out to say, hey, I'm available to fill your trucking need if you, bid on stage 2 for an incident that happens this summer. But I love that idea about a database for subcontractors. That could be coming in the future. Peter or Steve, do you have any thoughts?
No additional thoughts on that.
Peter, did we answer that correctly?
Yep. Next question.
Okay.
So next question, does CalRecycle / CalOES have a debris management plan for, looks like which region? Are temporary debris reduction sites identified for each site?
Steve, could you take the lead on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand that one.
Okay, as most people who've done debris before, we have a document that we used to call the DROP, Debris Removal Operations Plan, and we have changed the name of that to the Exhibit H, which is a new name for the DROP. Okay, and it specifies how debris will be removed, what debris will be removed, and our process for that. Supplemental sites added to the process, and let me clarify here. Our job is to remove debris from an APN or a site at a location on a street and take it to a landfill directly. Supplemental sites for gathering and reloading have to be approved by the IMT and the group prior to working that site, and that is an approved item in the process once the contract is let. I hope that answers the question.
Just one thing to add for our bidders, we've actually changed the Exhibit H to Exhibit 8.1, A as in Adam, which is now listed on our disaster website as an example document, as a reference document. Exhibit 8.1, Special Provisions. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Peter and Steve. I can move on to the next question here. Does the contractor have to show experience with the number of parcels to pre-qualify for that category?
Say that again? Does the contractor have to show experience with the number of parcels? Well, so that'll be reflected in their reference, right? So they have to submit a reference that, so that we are confident when we put that and evaluate whether that contractor is pre-qualified for category 1, 2, or 3, depending upon the size of the jobs that he or she has performed prior. So the answer to that is yes. I hope I explained it correctly. I don't know, Steve or Peter, if you want to elaborate.
No, that's,
I would-
haven't. Steve?
Go ahead, Peter.
That was a good answer, Stasia. I don't have anything further to add. Anything to add, Steve?
I would say my only recommendation to contractors is, yes, we're looking for contractors with experience, and based upon your experience and your participation in past projects, you can move up in categories by saying, well, I've worked on this project, we did this many lots, and we'd like to maybe apply for the next category up. And that will be considered as part of the review.
Let's just see here. Looks like we got a number of questions coming through here, so I'm just going to try and answer these as.
Yeah, this is great. I'm delighted at the active participation. What do we have till 11, Luke?
We have till 11, Anastasia.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
So we'll try and
Luke,
get through these. Yeah.
Luke, I can help you out. So one of the question is, what is the term of the pre-qualification? How many years will a contractor be qualified for?
Well, they're going to be qualified for, we haven't set a duration for the pre-qualification list. Is that the question? Like, what's the duration of the pre-qualification list?
Correct. What is the term of the pre-qualification and how many years will a contractor be qualified for?
Yeah, I think we'll probably mirror it after, and this hasn't been decided yet, but as all of you know, we just did a master services agreement for our assessment and monitoring contractors through DGS. And that list, that MSA is active for 2 years with the option to extend to 3. And I think, you know, our goal with all of these processes is to have them speak to each other and have them work together. And so I think it'll probably be something like that. I don't know, Shelley, Luke, or Steve, do you have a different vision of the term?
No, I think you phrased it properly, that the discussions we've been having.
Okay, that's a great question, though.
Another question is, can we consider extending the due date for the questions since it's around Memorial Day?
Well, no. And the reason for that is because we want to get this list up and running and published, and we want to be ready and poised to deploy quickly this year. Now, hopefully, we won't have to deploy until maybe never, you know, this year, or maybe not till September, but we just don't know that. And so our responsibility at CalRecycle is to the citizens of the state of California and those who are devastated and traumatized by fires every year. And so we need to be responsive and put them as our first priority.
Okay, the next question, does this process advertisement replace the other recent RFPs? And they are mentioning the MSA, I believe. Are you still going to award that contract?
Yeah, DGS, I guess they haven't awarded it yet. Is that right? They haven't. We've got 8 qualified bidders, but I don't know. What, have they not published the award date? Is that what the question is?
The MSA and this particular solicitation are 2 separate solicitations. The MSA for A&M contracting and assessment and monitoring services. This is for DDHTR services, which is the actual hazard tree removal and the debris removal services. So interested parties should consider those solicitations totally separate and apart. This is a separate solicitation from the one that's being run by DGS.
And that has closed, just to be clear. That's in its final, you know, packaging and award state. So that opportunity is closed for assessment and monitoring.
Next question, if you are submitting for the largest category 3 services, will you be pre-qualified for the small and medium categories?
Well, definitely indicate that. This is a very important question. So your reference needs to be for the largest category that you are wanting to get pre-qualified for. That makes sense. But you have to, don't assume that if you check category 3 that we know you want category 1 and 2. You've got to check all that you're interested in. And likewise with the regions, all that you're prepared to deploy in. Peter, Steve, did you have, or Shelley or Luke, did you have anything to add to that? Excuse me.
No, you gave a great answer. So, I mean, essentially, yes, but you definitely need to indicate that on attachment 6 by checking all those checking all the boxes.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley. She's very familiar with all these specific attachments. So attachment 6.
I would
ahead,
also
Steve.
share with the contractors that, you know, please indicate those categories that you want to work. You may be qualified and going for a category 3, which is the largest amount, and because of the fires, we may have a fire with the category 1, and we may go to you and say, hey, do you want to do this job? And having those boxes checked will specify that we're going to be approaching you for that. So yes, it is very important to make sure those boxes are checked appropriately of what you want to do. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yep. Yeah, and again, fill that form out correctly. Now, the beauty of this, though, is it's not, one and done. If you don't fill it out correctly, you can do it again. And we'll let you know that, well, yeah, if you fail to mark all the categories, then you're just not going to get on the list for all the categories. If you do that inadvertently or by mistake, you can always reapply for those other categories. So, okay, go ahead. Next question.
The next question is this, I think you already answered this, but I'll ask it since someone's asking. This is centered around contractors being pre-qualified. Do subcomponents need to be pre-qualified, such as the landfills the contractors may use in each of the 5 zones?
So I think Steve covered that really, really thoroughly. But you know what, Steve, because it's asked again, do you mind repeating that answer?
Sorry, Anastasia, I didn't hear the question. What was it again, please?
It's about the landfills. Shelley, could you read it again, please?
This is centered around contractors being pre-qualified. Do subcomponents need to be pre-qualified, such as the landfills the contractor may use in each of the 5 zones?
So, yeah, thank you for repeating that for me. So, at CalRecycle, we are responsible for permitting the landfills that operate within the state of California. We have very specific requirements on the debris that we remove from the fires and can be taken to landfills, and only certain landfills that are approved for use, and those are put on the list of landfills in the supplemental documentation provided to you for use. And I have to say that if contractors want to use alternative landfills, we must make an evaluation on that, or landfills outside of the state. We actually do that on some rare occasions. So we have to make the evaluation, but we're expecting the contractors to use the list of landfills that we supply at the initial part. Hope that answers the question.
This is Peter. Just to add some color in between the lines to Steve's answer, the question I heard was whether subcomponents or subcontractors need to be pre-qualified. And the answer to that is that at stage 1, we do not ask for pre-qualification of subcontractors at stage 1, but these requirements that Steve just mentioned, we anticipate that being part of the stage 2 request for bid documents. So everything from the landfill requirements to the subcontractors who are felling trees, those are the type of requirements that we will need documentation of and will be conducting at stage 2. But the answer to the question is, at stage 1, no, we don't anticipate pre-qualifying subcontractors.
Thank you, Peter and Steve. The next question is the pre-qual for primes only?
Well, I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. It's for any contractor that could qualify for any of the service categories, or not service categories, but any of the size categories and regions. So if you think of yourself as a subcontractor that can qualify for small, medium, and large, you are encouraged and welcome to apply. Peter, you want to add anything to that?
Nope.
Okay. Or Steve or Shelley or Luke?
The next question is the pre-qualification required for subcontractors that will perform work under a prime contractor on these contracts? I think you just gave the answer, but
I think so too. Read that one again, because maybe there was a nuance.
Is
please.
Is this pre-qualification required for subcontractors that will perform work under a prime contractor on these contracts?
No. So that it's important just to say emphatically no. So just like, so this goes to the legal formation of a contract. At stage 2, whoever is awarded, whichever entity or joint venture is awarded the contract, is responsible for choosing responsible subcontractors and will be legally responsible and liable for the work of those subcontractors. So maybe that helps a little bit.
What is the prompt payment policy of CalRecycle? How many days do you take to pay? What is remedy for late payments to prime contractors?
So we follow the Statutory Prompt Payment Act, which is, I think it's government code. What is it, Peter? If you know it off the top of your head, sorry. And that's what we follow, is the Prompt Payment Act.
Sorry, it's my microphone was muted. It's government code 927 at SEC.
Yeah, so that's what we follow. Do you want to add anything to that, Peter?
Nope, great answer.
Okay.
So you have a limit on how many contractors you will award the pre-approved status to?
No, there's no limit.
Mm-mm. No, that's what's great, is that this could be a enormous list. That's what we hope.
What is your decision process for the acquisition best value? Lowest price? Does the RFP have a price page as part of the original AI approved list?
What's AI? I don't know what that is.
I think the answer to this question, though, while we're awaiting a clarification of AI, is that we will clarify these things about the exact procurement method for request for bids at stage 2.
Yeah.
For now, anybody who's interested in participating as a prime contractor in our disaster recovery operations for future projects, for future operations, should submit their applications for stage 1 immediately, or as soon as possible.
Does anybody know what AI stands for? Steve, do you? I don't.
No, I'm not sure what the reference is entailing.
Okay.
We can clarify. Luke, can you just double check that question and make sure I got it right? I'll move on to the next while Luke's looking for that. Is there
Okay.
any minority owned or veteran owned acquisition plans?
Acquisition plans. I don't know what that means. Acquisition plans?
Some more information will be forthcoming, but I think this is in reference to the socioeconomic requirements that are part of federal procurement law.
Oh, okay.
So we would direct applicants' attentions to the business entity questionnaire attachment, where those questions are laid out in full detail.
Perfect. Okay, we have about 10 more minutes. We can get through a few more questions, I think.
Prevailing wages based off counties, and your regions cover many different counties. Do you want the highest rate per region or for each county per the prevailing wage charts?
At this stage, we would not expect, because pricing is not part of stage 1, we do not expect any type of we wouldn't expect any of the applications to mention the exact prevailing wage that would be applicable, because we actually don't know where the disaster will strike. That type of specific will be available at stage 2. So at this time, prevailing wage rates would not need to be submitted at stage 1 because bid prices are not part of stage 1's application process.
Thank you, Peter. Are you considering awarding separate contracts to tree removal contractors and or debris removal contractors?
No. You mean at stage 2? Is that what he's asking? He or she? So maybe read it again, Shelley. Please.
Are you considering awarding separate contracts to tree removal contractors and or debris removal contractors?
No, I mean, not at this point. Where, it's the stage 2 will be one contract, but the nice thing about having 2 lists, one for hazard trees and one for disaster or for debris removal, is that they can start to figure out their joint venture and start to kind of get their game plan in order before we publish our request for bids. Peter, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, what else?
Do subcontractors interested in a distinct piece of the hazard tree removal, trucking, for example, use the pre-qualification process as well? Will there be a different database or other tool for contractors used to find qualified subs? And you guys may have already answered
I
that.
think we answered that one. Maybe read it one more time because there could be a little bit of a nuance there.
Excuse me. Do subcontractors interested in a distinct piece of hazard tree removal, trucking, for example, use the pre-qualification process as well? Will there be a database or other tool for contractors to use to find qualified subcontractors?
So I think we did answer that. Love that idea about a database. I think for subcontractors wanting to, grow and be proactive about their business, they'll have this as a resource, this pre-qualified list to provide, the example is trucking, to provide trucking to any of these pre-qualified contractors, should they be awarded a contract.
Okay, the next one's a really good question. Only those contractors included on the July 1st list will be able to submit bids this year?
No. So, and Shelley, I don't have that exact timeline, but why we're encouraging you to do it now by, what is it, June 10th? Submit by June 10th. Is that what it is?
Yes, it is, June 10th.
Okay, thank you. Why we're doing that now is because we want to get as many pre-qualified as possible before fire season starts, before an incident occurs. Now, notwithstanding that, if an incident occurs and the contractor who asked this question, didn't get their ducks in a row and get on the list, no worries. They can make sure to keep checking our website. And when we're mission tasked by OES and, we are figuring out the assessment and monitoring contractor piece, then we will put a notification on our website that says, XYZ, CalRecycle has been mission tasked to provide services and debris removal support to XYZ, to respond to XYZ fire. Then that will trigger this contractor X who didn't get pre-qualified up front to say, oh my gosh, I have what are we giving them, Shelley and Luke? 5 days? I think 5 days from the date of that,
The notice, yes. 5
the
days.
notice to get that pre-qualification in, because we're going to be moving to stage 2 pretty quick. So that's how that works. I don't know if you guys want to elaborate on that, Peter or Steve or Shelley or Luke, because yeah, it's a good question.
I would say the only thing I'd like to share with the group here is right now we're putting this out, we're providing the information. June 10th gives you about 2 weeks to respond and reply, and we encourage everyone to take that time to submit their applications and get approved. But I would say I have no idea what the fire season's going to be this year, and if we have multiple fires. And would you rather have 2 weeks now or 5 days later? I think the tighter timeline is going to be tough to accomplish.
Yep, we just don't know. And then of course, to build on Steve's point, you know, we don't know when these incidents are going to occur. Once we get through this fire season, you know, the universe of pre-qualified bidders has that opening for the next year to get on the list. So that's what is really wonderful about the creation of these lists. It allows it allows preparation on all of your parts and your business readiness to get pre-qualified. It allows you know, I think an opportunity to really, really grow this market, which is very exciting. And I think it allows you, if you apply and get pre-qualified for a small region, or excuse me, a small category and 2 regions, or a small category and 1 region, you could come back this winter and, or next winter, whenever, and say, you know what, I'm going to get pre-qualified for all the regions this time and for all the categories. And so it really does allow, which is, you know, part of our role in the state of California, partnering with all of you contractors to really facilitate growth in this arena and job growth, right? I mean, one of our biggest drivers in this pre-qualified list is to make sure that we are not only growing the market, but providing an opportunity for young people to enter this workforce, to learn as an apprentice, and to someday hopefully have their own contractor business. So that's our goal, and that's why it's an ongoing list, and why it's such a milestone. So that's all.
It looks like we are past our 11 o'clock time.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. Totally fine.
Okay. So, Shelley, how many more questions do we have? I guess
there's still several questions coming in, so I was going to ask, since we are at time for the webinar, did we want to reserve these questions and answer them in the FAQ, or keep going?
What do you guys think? I don't know if this webinar is just going to turn off.
How many more questions do we have left?
There's quite a few.
I would suggest referring them to the Q&A process.
Okay. Well, I love that there's so many questions, and can we tell, Shelley, how many people are in attendance? Just to kind of share with the group.
There's 144 folks in attendance.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. That's great. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. Really good questions. I think some of the questions got at things that, you know, we did want to make sure were crystal clear to all of you. And we will look forward to publishing the rest of your questions and our answers on our frequently asked questions page. And what else, you guys?
I think you covered it, Anastasia. I think that should be everything.
Awesome. So thank you. I just have to give extreme gratitude and thanks to the CalRecycle team who worked so many long, arduous hours and had the vision to make this a reality. So I think that this is a really exciting opportunity for all of you, and we cannot wait to see your applications. So everyone have a wonderful, long weekend and the rest of the day, and we will look forward to seeing your applications on June 10th, before June 10th. On June 10th. I don't want to misstate that. Shelley, what is it? They're due by June 10th, or we encourage them by June 10th.
Luke, can you pull the process schedule back up on the?
Let's do that before we say goodbye, because I think there's been so many good questions.
So we are asking for questions to be submitted by the 31st to allow us time to prepare the FAQ and get that back out to you so you can use those answers if that will help with your application packages. And those are due on June 10th by 2 p.m. In hopes that we can get this pre-qual list posted by, prior to July 1st.
And Shelley, for the questions that were submitted through this pre-bidders for the optional pre-bidders conference, do people need to resubmit their question?
No, do not resubmit your questions, as the webinar has captured your questions, and so we'll incorporate those into the FAQ. So if you have any new questions that you were not able to ask in this forum, please submit them to contracts@calrecycle.ca.gov for incorporation by May 31st at 5 o'clock.
Which is Tuesday, right, you guys?
Yes.
Okay. And there you have it. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.